Hello, friends. Good evening. And I have gone through some of your chat and I see the excitement for this session. And I'm very happy to be with you today. And I also thank NPTEL for giving this opportunity to talk on the subject we have. So let me begin with a little presentation that I have put together for all of you. Okay, we'll just give it a minute or a few seconds for it to show up on the screen. Okay. All right. So, a little brief about myself, the companies that I have worked for. I started my career with General Electric, then had some years of experience at Computer Associates, then HCL Technologies, and the last 10 years I have been with Capgemini. So, in total, I have 19 years of IT experience. In terms of, oops, sorry, just a minute. Okay. Some technical glitch there. But in terms of the places that I have lived in, I am a Hyderabadi, but I have worked in Mumbai, worked in Bangalore, and also was fortunate to work in some European cities like Amsterdam and London. Now, coming to the experiences that I have, I worked in cloud infrastructure services in a quality stream, worked as a project manager, but I decided that people are what I'm interested in. So very recently I moved into HR. All right. So before we actually jump into the topic, I just want to put a disclaimer that whatever I'm going to share are my personal views. So I'm not representing anybody, including NPTEL or my company here. Whatever I'm going to share is my personal experience of being in the industry for almost 2 decades. So I just want to reflect on this quote by Dalai Lama, wherein he says that when you talk, you are repeating what you already know. So what I'm doing is I'm saying what I already know. But you guys on the other side are listening. And that is the most difficult part because we are bombarded with so much of distraction these days. But if you are paying attention to this lecture, then you are actually doing a great job then me sitting here. So I'll just quickly touch upon the flow of the lecture. So we will talk about your current state to a future state that you will get to. We will talk about a typical journey in the companies, then the expectations that companies have, and what you can do in COVID-19 situation because I have been informed by the NPTEL team that some of the students are looking for answers on what to do. Then we will summarize it, and at the end, we will have some question and answers. Okay. All right. So we move to the subject. When you saw this topic, I'm sure a lot of you might have thought, in the current situation, are companies still hiring? Right? That thought might have come into your mind. And the answer is yes. Now, when we say companies, we have a lot of different industries and sectors, right? I saw a couple of comments that some of you are interested in financial services, some of them are in the bio space, some in manufacturing. So I might not be able to reflect on all the industries because in my introduction, as I have mentioned that I have experience in IT. I know there were some comments in the chat that you want some reflections on non-IT, but I'm sorry, but I might not be the right person to reflect. So given my experience, the references that I will give will be mostly from the IT industry. Okay, so in the IT industry, at least the hiring is happening. Maybe the pace at which the hiring used to happen is not the case, uh, and the methods in which the hiring used to take place have changed, and organizations are looking at newer ways to hire resources. All right. So, what exactly is happening? So, from your college campuses, you all are getting ready to move to a corporate company. Now, the dynamics definitely are a little different, but if you want to draw parallels, actually, not a lot is different. What I mean by that is in college, you have your classmates. In the corporate company, you will have team members. In college, you have your professors. And in a corporate company, you will have supervisors and managers. And in the campus, you go through exams and get grades. In corporates, you get rating. So if you want to draw parallel, there are a lot of similarities between these two different entities. Okay, so when I was preparing this PPT, I just wanted to reflect on how I used to think when I was your age, right? So when we were in school, we thought that it's almost done. Then we were in our 10th and we thought, okay, when are we going to hit the college? And then when we hit the college, we were like, okay, now it's done and dusted. But the moment you go to the organization, you realize that, okay, there is still a lot more to do. Okay, so if you're thinking that, okay, studies are going to be over and you hit the corporate world and things are going to be different, yes, they will be different, but you will still have a lot of work that needs to be done. Okay, so from a topic, what we are saying is, what is it that the companies look for in a candidate, right? So is it any candidate that we are referring to? Basically, we are saying an ideal candidate. Now, you might question, like, okay, what exactly is an ideal candidate? So let me give you an example. When I was your age, when I was doing my graduation, I used to go to an IT institute, like you have this NIIT AppTech. And my first company, General Electric, came for not exactly campus hiring, but they wanted to hire students who were undergoing the courses there. And I did not get through. But after I finished my course there, after 6 months, I again applied for the same organization and I got through. So, what I'm trying to say is if you don't get through, don't get disheartened because probably you did not fit the requirement there. So even in General Electric, we used to have different departments. The department that came to interview me 6 months before was different. But when I was hired, it was a different department. So that goes to show that you might be an ideal candidate, but not for that particular requirement. So please remember every time you go for an interview, and if you don't get selected, just think that probably you didn't fit the requirement, not that there are some issues with you and your caliber and all that stuff. So let's quickly look at how your journey is going to be in companies. Yeah. So first you go through an evaluation, which is nothing but your knowledge is checked, whether you're fit to be a part of the culture of that organization is checked. Then you are onboarded because obviously you come with some knowledge from your colleges, but organizations work on different methodologies, tools, and processes. So you need to be prepared for that, or you will be prepared for that. And eventually, when you are ready, you will be deployed. So there are different departments, different business units. Every organization refers it differently, and you are a part of that team. And then you will start working either for a client or for the organization internal work. Now, you must be thinking, like, okay, I'm not worried about the second and third because I just have to crack the interview. I just want an entry into the organization. But my friends, I just want to stress that when the company comes to your campus or you are going in for a walk in, the organization is looking at you not just in that one evaluation phase, but they will evaluate you to see how you are might be in the other different phases of your journey in the organization. So we will go into a little detail about each one of them, and then probably you will be able to make sense of what I'm trying to say. So let's look at, and before that, expectations are different at different steps of these journeys. So let's look at evaluation. So any typical evaluation, again, I will reiterate that some industries might follow it differently, but in most of the IT companies, what we have seen is this is what it happens. So there is an aptitude test. Sometimes it is online and sometimes it's paper based. Most of the evaluations sometimes happen on the same day or it is staggered for different days. But then you do go through a technical evaluation. After you are through with your aptitude, you go through a technical evaluation. And many students feel that the technical evaluation is done by the HR team, but actually it is the delivery guys who are checking your knowledge. So what I mean by that is, take an example. If you are applying for a software engineer or the company is there to hire software engineers, the technical round is taken by somebody who has experience in the software side. Maybe a senior software engineer will take your interview. Then the final round is conducted by the HR people. Now, there is a possibility that if you have not cleared the first round, so your journey ends there. And sometimes you cover that, but at the stage two, you don't get it. But if you finish all evaluations, that is when the company gives you either an offer or it is also referred as a letter of intent, because the companies usually go to colleges when you are still in college, right? So this is a typical evaluation process. So what is expected from candidate? Now coming to the topic of our lecture, expectations of the company, right? So even at the evaluation stage, the company's expectation is you need to be consistent. Only when you finish the stage one, stage two, stage three, you will be called for either an offer or a letter of intent, as I have just mentioned, right? So consistency is very important. It's just not in the evaluation when you hit the company and start working, you are always expected to be consistent in your delivery. Now, moving on, the first contact. Now, this is very crucial because the research says that when you meet somebody, it is the first couple of seconds, maybe 6 to 8 seconds, is when your impression is formed. Because human beings are all meaning making machines. We look at somebody and immediately we start forming some impressions and perception about that person. So you have to be extra careful when you first meet, let's say, an interviewer. Okay, so there are a couple of things which are applicable in your first contact, which is your punctuality. The second is your appearance, and the third is your resume. Because this is your first contact, the expectations for all these three is in terms of punctuality, you need to be available on the scheduled time. Now, this is extremely important because when you join the organization, there are chances that you might be working with global people from Germany, US, UK, and there are different time zones and there will be meetings scheduled. So you are expected to be on time for those meetings. So if you demonstrate that here, then you are not giving an opportunity for the interviewer to think otherwise about you. The second is appearance. Now, these might look like very, very small things, but believe me, these little things that matters the most. So what I mean by appearance, it's not that the person who has designer clothes or has a nice hairstyle will get the job, but you need to be presentable because you might be interacting with customers. So if you go to any ICICI bank or an HDFC bank, just see how well they are dressed. Now, given the COVID situation, and if we have to do virtual connect, then also you have to be in a presentable manner, right? So it's very important. The third is your resume. Now, you can say that, sir, I have no experience. What can I put in my resume? So while we understand that you might not have a lot of information in your resume, but whatever you put in, please ensure that it is formatted nicely. There are no spelling mistakes, and whatever relevant that you feel is required, just put it up there. Okay, so these are the three things that you need to take care of when you have the first contact. Now, moving on. During the interview, it is you and the interviewer. And the format as such is the interactions between you two will happen in the form of question and answers. So what happens is you answer and you think that is the right answer. In your mind, you feel that is the right answer. But whereas the interviewer might say that that's not what we want. So basically, what we are saying is what you think is important and what interests them, there has to be, I am sure you all know what a Venn diagram is. It needs to be relevant. So I'll give you an example. So when I used to do campus hiring, I asked one young chap, like, okay, give me an example of the social service you have done. And he thought for a minute and he said, well, sir, I helped my mom and dad in the kitchen in preparing food. Uh, so for him, it looks like that is the service he is doing, but I wanted to understand what he has done for the community. Yeah. So you see what how you need to answer the questions that come your way in the interview. So a tip that I can give you is make a list of potential questions and practice. Now, believe me, even today, if I have to take an interview, if I have to give an interview, though I have been with the organization for the last 10 years, but when we get promoted, we sometimes go through interviews, and I make a list of all possible questions that might come up. If I am going to give this answer, then what is the next possible question that can come my way? So I make a list of it and go through it. So please do that exercise before you go for an interview. All right. So what are your interviewers actually looking at, right? So they are looking at your hard skills, which are nothing but your technical skills, any functional knowledge that you have, or any certifications that you have. And they are also looking at some of the soft skills. Now, most often you hear that communication skills are very important and all that stuff, right? So I say, yes, definitely communication skills are important, but at the same time, there are a lot of others which are not shared very often. So as we go into our session, you will see what are some of those other skills that are very important and just not communication skills. I would say communication skill is a bare minimum expectation of any organization. So little tip for your hard skills is know your subject well, because I remember countless interviews where I have asked the students basic thing from their studies and they were unable to answer it. So invariably you are telling me that you have never been serious about your studies, right? So please take care of your subject. And in terms of your soft skill, please show what you are, the true you. And I'll give you an example. Just because you are appearing for an interview for a multinational company doesn't mean that you have to put on an accent. Yeah, that will not work because everybody understands in the world these days that in India we might have some mother tongue influence. So that's absolutely fine. But just be the true you. Don't put on a different thing when you go for an interview. All right. In terms of onboarding, now that you are through with the evaluation, and let's say you are ready to join the organization, in terms of onboarding, let's say you have been offered and your joining location is Hyderabad, for instance, but your training location might be Mumbai, and your project location can be somewhere in Karnataka, Bangalore, right? This is a possibility. So what is the expectation from the candidate is openness. And I can tell you that it's absolutely okay to experience different cities, different places, different cultures early on. Because just in case if you are planning to get married and then also have kids later on, then it becomes extremely difficult because your mobility gets restricted. So if you get opportunities early on in your 20s, I would strongly suggest take it because it helps you expand the way you look at the world. Your world views will be different, you will become more tolerant, and you will understand a lot. And you will be an asset for any other organization because you become more independent as well. All right. Now, when you join an organization, obviously you will be considered as a beginner. And with beginning, most often we commit mistakes, which is absolutely fine. So the expectation from the candidate that the organizations have or the companies have is learn from your mistakes. So when you are sitting in that interview, talk about some of the mistakes that you have done in your life and what you have learned out of it. So I see a lot of reluctance when I ask this question in an interview. Okay, tell me a time where you have failed. And everybody is trying to put up a nice image of themselves, and failing is very bad. So don't do that, because organizations understand that you have maybe a theoretical knowledge of the book, but on the practical side, things happen differently. So errors are bound to happen. So don't shy away from sharing some of the mistakes that you have learned. But most importantly, what the interviewer is trying to check is, have you learned something out of it or not? So here I would like to share a wonderful story of our beloved uh, president. We had APJ Abdul Kalam. He said, your best teacher is your last mistake. So when he was working, he had a scientist or an engineer who did some mistake, and he came to him and said, "Okay, I'm going to resign because it costed a lot of money to our organization." And Sir APJ Abdul Kalam said that, well, you are the most important and team member that I have, and I'm not going to let you go. And he said, but I have committed a mistake. But he said, yeah, but that is a costly mistake, and I know that you will not repeat it. So, with that story, I guess you need to understand that in corporations as well, your seniors will understand that you will commit mistakes. So, you can share what you have learned from your mistakes. All right, different roles. Again, please pardon if I'm using a lot of technical terms which are related to an IT industry, but as I have mentioned, that is where my experience is. So in an IT industry, you have different departments, different functions, and different areas. Some of them I have listed here. And within that, there might be a lot of different roles which will be applicable. So you cannot be saying that, okay, my cousin is a software engineer or my family wants me to be a software engineer and that is what I'll do. So company is expecting you to be flexible. You can't be sticking on to just one role. So in your college also, when you are answering some of the questions, you can relate to the different roles that you have played in a college. Maybe you were a class representative, or maybe you were a coordinator in the college fest, or you were a team member for some project. So just bring out the different roles that you have played, and that shows that you are flexible to play different roles in the organization as well. All right, so last we move to the deployment. Now you're finished with evaluation, now you're finished with your learning and all that stuff, and now you are a part of a bigger team or a capability, whatever companies want to refer them. So here you will work with different set of people. It can be your project manager, team leader, supervisor, different team members, and also sometimes client. So all of you are working towards one objective. So the expectation is the very famous teamwork. So when you are answering some of the questions in the interview, reflect on the team dynamics that you have. So I'm sure you do some projects as a part of your college. So if there are team members, what were the dynamics? How, if you were the team leader for that, or you were the responsible person for that project, then how did you resolve conflicts when two team members didn't get along with each other? Or how did you influence them to do something? How did you motivate them? There could be endless uh, opportunities. Just think through how the story has been of your college life and try and weave that into the answers that you give during your interview. And when you are a part of the team, obviously you will be required to work on different technologies. So let's take an example that you are certified on AWS, that is Amazon. Okay. But your customer wants Azure, and your company feels that the future projects might be on Google Cloud, right? So the expectation from the company is your learning ability and agility, how quick you will learn and how agile you are. I'm sure you must be hearing this word agile a lot of time these days. And especially in the COVID situation, agility is the most important attribute that the organizations are looking in, not just in hiring new candidate, but also in the candidates or employees who are a part of the organization. Okay, so here again, you can talk about the different skills you picked up while you were in college or when you were in school or on your personal life as well. Anything that you picked up, you can talk about that to show that you are quick in learning and you are agile. Okay, now I will reflect on the request that I received that a lot of students are asking, okay, what should we do when we have so much of time in this COVID situation now? So what happens in normal typical interview when we interact with a candidate, all of them go to this about us section. I'm just taking an example of Capgemini here. So any company will always have an about us section. So there they will list down a couple of things which are applicable for the organization. So in our interview experiences, a lot of candidates tell us about when the company was formed, how many offices are there, and this and that. Okay, that is good. But what I say is about us plus if there are services. If it is a service organization, please check what are the services that this company offers. If it is a product organization, you can look at what are the different products they have. But if it is a services, then please have a look at what are the different services. Now, you might think that, okay, fine, I have seen what the services are, but I have no idea what exactly happens in these services, right? So first part of the homework that you need to do is thoroughly go through the website, the public website of the organization, and then go to your friend LinkedIn. Now, I'm sure you have your Facebook accounts and other social media, but if you are planning to start a career in a corporate world, LinkedIn should be your first social media platform that you need to go to. You might not have a lot of information about your experiences. It's absolutely fine. You can just create a profile and I'll tell you how you can reach out to people who can help you understand what are the different services or the products or the function of the organization is. So let's say you go on LinkedIn and then you click on companies and let's say you search Capgemini as a company. It will give you the number of employees in Capgemini who are on LinkedIn. So now don't get worried about, oh, there are more than 200,000, over 2 lakh employees. How am I going to reach out to them and why would they even respond to my request or whatever? Just hold those thoughts. Once you click on this link of the number of employees, it will take you to another page where you can apply filter. You click on filter, then it will allow you to narrow your search by putting in the city in which you need this person. So you can put whatever, Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Delhi, whatever you can put. Then it will give you the list of people. Then this check mark that you see, pro bono consulting and volunteering. So if somebody has checked that, then they get a list of options, whether they are open for mentoring and any voluntary work. So as you can see here on my profile, I have the career advice tab on, which means when I have the time, I am willing to speak to somebody who wants some career advice in the area that I am in. So for instance, if you are a biotech candidate and you want to reach out to me trying to understand how the industry is moving and all, unfortunately I might not be able to add any value or give you any inputs. But if you are interested to know about human resources, for instance, right, about coaching or anything, then if you reach out to me and you mention what exactly your need is, and if I feel that I will be able to help you out, then I will respond and we can have a conversation. So bottom line is there are people out there who are ready to help. All you have to do is ask and use the right platform. So you have a lot of time right now. So if you have a dream company and if you feel that that company will come to your campus You can contact your class representatives, or you can contact your training and placement officers. Every college has that, and they will be able to tell you which are the companies which are going to come. And then you can do thorough research about that organization on their website, and through LinkedIn you can reach out to the employees who are currently working there, so that your confidence level will be completely different when you go for an interview after having this information with you. Okay. So we come to actually an end, and I am cognizant of the time because I see there are a lot of question and answer questions that I see on the Google form. So we will give some time to answer those questions. But in order for you to remember whatever we have discussed today, I have used something like a mask. Now, in the COVID situation, I'm sure all of you are wearing a mask when you're going out, right? And I strongly urge that please do for yourself and for others in the community, right? So what I mean by mask is when you go to an interview, the interviewer is actually if you are wearing any mask, the interviewer is actually trying to see what is it behind the mask, right? So in order for you to remember the learnings from this lecture, I have simplified it by saying M is the motivation. So your interviewer, the company representative, is actually trying to see what is your motivation to take up a role when the company offers you. And this can come to you in the form of, why do you want to join us? If you had experience of attending any interviews, then I'm sure 90% of the time, probably this question comes, why do you want to join us? Now, possibilities are endless. You might want to join the company just to gain an experience before you apply for your MS. You might want to join a company because there is a lot of pressure from your family that they heard about this organization. The relatives are working there and it is like a status or a prestige issue and you want to join. There can be a lot of motivations, right? So state the motivation. And one of the student once asked me like, sir, I don't want to work. Basically, after 10 years of my career, I want to start a company of my own. I think I have the entrepreneurship skills in me, and I don't want to do a job in some company. And I said, absolutely, you can state that. Don't think just because you tell the company that I'm not going to be with you forever, they are not going to hire you. Because companies also understand that people move between one company to another company pretty fast these days. So while they expect you to stay longer, because the cost of hiring a new resource is much higher than um, having somebody leave the organization, right? So we try and promote people within as well instead of hiring a lot. So if you stay in the organization for long, then the chances that you will get promoted and things like that. So that is on the motivation. The second is on your attitude. A is for attitude. And most often or not, you are asked, how would you react or respond? So basically, these are the situational questions. And all of us look at situations in a different light. Our perspective of certain thing is completely different because the environments in which we have been brought up are completely different, right? So, do you carry that positive attitude? Do you have that attitude of giving it a try, or are you somebody who will just give up? So, the opportunities are endless, the possibilities are endless, but what companies are trying to look is whether you have the right attitude or not. Okay, so that's A for you. The S is the skills. Now, sometimes it comes in the form of a question like, when was the last time you applied something? Like, for instance, I can give you an example. I'm sure you might be expecting that I will tell you what are some potential questions that will come in an interview. But as I said, it all depends on the interviewer and the person who is getting interviewed. It all depends on the kind of role that you're applying for. It all depends on a lot of variables, right? But most often it is asked like, okay, when was the last time you listened carefully to something? So probably they're trying to check your listening skills, right? So that is on the skills. The last part is knowledge. So this is mostly in the form of what is question. Okay, please tell me what is the fourth layer in the OSI layer and all that stuff. So that is where they try and check your knowledge. So in all of this, it is all about you, right? So unless you feel confident about yourself, and how do you get that confidence? When you know your subject well. You get the confidence when you know about the organization. You will get the confidence when you understand what exactly the companies are looking for. When you have all of this at the back of your mind, then when you're sitting there, the interview or the evaluation process will be extremely easy. So, as the company says, your career is in your hands. Okay. So that is the end of the slide that I have. Now we have close to half an hour. I'll quickly go to the questions and see what are some of the questions that we have received. Just give me a minute. Okay. All right. So there are a lot of questions here. Let me see the relevant one that I can pick. Okay, Gunashekaran is asking, what do the recruiters expect the most, knowledge or talent? Okay, so I mean, if I have to define knowledge and talent, knowledge is the thing that needs to be done, but talent is the ability with which you can do those things, right? So it's very difficult to segregate this and say that, oh, no, 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 it's only the knowledge which is important or just the talent. It is a combination of both. And how do you demonstrate that talent is also important in that interview. Yeah. All right. So let me see if there's any other relevant question. Okay, right. So there is a question from Saurav. He says, how to prepare for product-based companies, what they expect in their employees. So Saurav, as I mentioned, every organization has different ways of looking at their employees. And if it is a product-based company, they will have their products listed on their website. If something is being developed, if it is in the strategy stage, probably that is not open for public. You will not know. In fact, their own employees might not know about that product. But whatever product is out in the market, if they are selling it, there is a customer base for that. Then you can go through their website and you can get the information about all the products. And as I have shown, you can contact some of the employees working in that organization to know more about their product. But what they look for in a candidate is concerned, as I have said, the areas around the learning ability, the flexibility, the agility, and learning from mistakes. These are some of the common things which are expected out of any uh, fresher, as we refer it, or somebody who's coming straight out of college. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. There are some questions on pharmacy, but as I said, I might not be the right person for it. There are questions on what are the opportunities for math graduates. Okay. Huh. There is a question from Atul which says, what will be the effect of this pandemic on fresher hiring, and also what is process of hiring that companies are going to adapt? Good question. So, because of this pandemic, so right now, what I have heard when I speak to my friends in the similar industry or even our own organization, and some of the information is available in the public domain. You have a lot of websites and news online where we are going to honor whatever we have released, the offers or the letter of intent that we have. That is what I hear. And in terms of what is going to be the process going forward, this is very interesting. As I have mentioned, that companies are looking at different ways of how to hire. So I attended a HR conclave where there was an organization which says that gone are the days where you will do a face-to-face interview. The interviews will be over Skype or some other medium. It is going to be virtual. And the benefit out of that is there are some tools in the market. Some probably advanced companies or advanced countries are using it, where when your picture is on the video, the tool can actually read your micro expressions. So what I mean by that is if you are saying something that you don't have, for instance, let's say you're saying that you have experience on some area, but actually you don't, then you can't hide that expression from your face. So the tool will capture it and that data will be fed to the interviewer and that will decide the outcome of your interview. All right. Okay, what effect is going to be faced by student due to COVID-19? Shashank is asking that this question. So as I said, Shashank, it depends on the industry that you're looking at. For instance, let's say an airline industry, and if airline industry is also hire freshers for whatever roles, because the current situation they are going through, maybe there might not be opportunities. But for an IT, that is where I belong to, uh, I, it has not stopped, but there are different ways. And the pace at which the hiring used to happen has slowed down because a fresher's cost into the organization is much, much lesser than a lateral cost, which means somebody who comes with an experience. So companies are not going to stop hiring freshers, is what I can tell you at this point in time. Okay, all right. So there is a question from Arumugam. What should I do to get place in Capgemini? So uh, the answer for that is if Capgemini is coming to your university and you get to be a part of the interview process, then you just follow what we have discussed now. Otherwise, if your college is not a part of the hiring colleges that we go to, then you can look for sometimes we do the walk-ins, sometimes we do fresher hiring specially in different cities, so you can follow those news and you can appear for an interview. Okay, there is another interesting question from Hemant. He says, what if we lack in extracurricular activity, is it going to affect us? Okay, all right. So well, Hemant, it is not something that will impact negatively, uh, because maybe you are extremely good in your studies and you don't have time for extracurricular activities. So that is definitely not going to stop if you do well in your aptitude, if you respond properly to the technical questions, and then you also clear the HR round, you have the right attitude and all. Just because you don't have extracurricular activity is not going to hamper your chances in a negative way. However, I would say that given that you do a lot of things, for instance, now what I am doing, obviously it is uh, through my organization. So we have a CSR team who informed me about this opportunity. So it is an extra thing that I'm doing beside my work, right? So there are always advantages of that. If you get an opportunity, you can do, but it is not going to have very negative thing on your hiring. Okay, all right. Okay, there is a question from Balakrishna. What should be the ideal number of pages in a CV resume for freshmen and experienced personnel? Very good question. In fact, what is happening is these days in the market there are a lot of companies which are preparing your resumes. If you are struggling, however, what we have seen is earlier time we used to have resumes of like 4 or 5 pages, sometimes six, but the interviewers actually don't have the time to go through your entire resume. So these days people are having 1 or 2 pages, that's it. Sometimes I've seen a single page as well. So it depends on what information you want to put in there. Now, if you are a fresher, so you really don't know what exactly the job requirement is, because you get placed into different roles after you finish your training. But if you are a lateral and you're applying for a job, let's say of a software tester, then you need to list down things which are relevant to the software tester and not mention things which are not relevant. Maybe you have more experience, you can just give 1 or 2 lines about it, but don't expand it too much. So people don't have time to go through your entire resume, and they only search through your keywords. Okay, all right. So Bhargavi is asking a question. Shall companies only hire the people who are expect in the technical skills? So I assume your question is, do companies hire people only with good technical skills? So again, it depends on what is that company. If it is a retail organization, for instance, let's say I'm just taking an example. If it is Shopper Stop, and if they come and are looking for people who can join their retail uh, arm, then probably they don't look at technical skills. But if it is an IT company which is coming for hiring, then definitely they look at the technical skills, probably the languages that you have learned in your college and all that stuff. So it all depends on the company profile. Okay, so there's a question from Sheikh Altaf. If I'm just a graduate, what would companies expect? So as I said, it is based on what you have studied. So if you are a graduate and company, and when you say graduate, now I'm not sure which stream you are referring to. But if you are, let's say, a BCom graduate, but the company is looking for some technical skills, obviously you will not be able to relate. So you chances are that you might not get that technical job. But on the other hand, if it is a chartered accountant firm and they are looking for students who have become as their graduation, and if you are able to answer the queries on the ledgers, balance sheet, and all that stuff, then you might get selected for that. Okay, Sakshi is asking a very interesting question. What questions can we ask the interviewer? Wonderful. So, believe me, the interviewers would love to have questions from the candidates. Now, the questions can be uh, variety. There are so many variety of questions, and it all depends on what you want to know about the organization. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and she said that when I joined a certain company, I joined because the laptop models they give are pretty fancy. Okay, for her that was important. But obviously, if you ask this question, what kind of laptops do we get in the organization? Maybe it that might not be a relevant one, because in organization, the organizations can give different types of laptops or desktops, whatever. So it depends on what you want to know. Are you interested in what is the career path for somebody in the organization, or you want to know about the values of the organization? Because values are something that everybody in the organization are expected to demonstrate. So you can ask the company, okay, can you tell me about the values of your organization? Or if you are interested in voluntary work, community service, then you can ask, okay, beside our daily work, do we also engage ourselves into any community service? So depends on what you want to ask. And a good start is also the website of the organization, because every now and then organization keep up to date information on their websites. So if there's something that you don't understand, probably you can ask that question. And at the same time, you have to be also ready that the interviewer might not be a senior person in the organization to know about what you're asking. So there are possibilities that they might not be answering your question, so you have to accept that. Okay. All right, I'm just scrolling through. There are a lot of questions, and I'm just picking the ones which are relevant to our subject or the lecture that we are talking. Okay, all right. So Shrikant is asking a question nowadays, which technologies are better to build up the career? So again, I would say, see, I'm sure there are a lot on the call who got into, if you are into engineering, then probably you got into it because of family pressure, society, right? Or cousins, siblings, sisters, whatever, right? But what is it that you wanted to do? So after you finish, you have to decide what you want to do. So just because, let's say, if I tell you that, okay, artificial intelligence is the next big thing, but you like something else. So how are you going to be successful in that? So instead of focusing on what is the new technology which is better for a career is a long shot thing. Now look at my own career. So in the first slide, I have mentioned that I have experience in cloud, I have experienced in quality, I played a role of a project manager, I was in a non-technical process, in a technical process, IT help desk, and eventually now, after 19 years of experience, I have moved into something which is completely non-technical, which is HR, right? So decide what is right for you. Where is your interest? Look at the subjects that interest you within your college and try and go for it. Because if you are good at that, then you don't have to worry about your career. Eventually, that will kick off. Okay. All right. I'm just looking at some relevant questions. Okay. So there is a question from Vinod Kumar Verma. It says, in case if I have done not sufficient projects in the field, and how to improve that since I have to deal with, I think you're asking about the interview. So if you don't have any project experience, and if there is an opportunity for you to do it now, then you can do it. Now, it need not be a project within your college. You can pick up any personal project and you can talk about it. You can do a little reading about how projects are done, or you can check with your friends how they have done project, and you can do a personal project for yourself. Maybe you want to do something in your house. You can do it. Basically, what companies are looking for is, do you understand what all goes into working on a project? Because eventually when you join an organization, you might end up working for projects. Okay, all right. Just scrolling down. There is a question from Surabhi. Says how to answer the strength and weakness question. Okay, I get this a lot from younger population. So I say that there is no sample answer sheet that you can refer to and then go to an interview and answer. You know very well what your strengths are. You know very well what your weaknesses are. So if you recollect a slide which I was showing, saying that there are hard skills and there are soft skills. So consider this as a softer one. And I said you got to be true. Show the true you, right? So it's absolutely fine if there is any weakness that you have. Because interviewers, especially when you are fresh out of college and you are attending an interview, and if you say that I don't have any weakness, then chances are that it might go against you because all of us have weaknesses. It's extremely difficult for an interviewer to accept that you don't have any weakness. So if you have some weakness, mention about it. But at the same time, what many people don't do, which you need to start doing, is say as to what you are doing to overcome that weakness. So maybe at the time of interview, you have not emerged out and made that weakness into a strength, but talk about what you are doing to overcome that weakness. And that will be very much appreciated by the interviewer. Okay, all right, I'm just going through and I'm trying to scan some questions which are relevant. Okay, so there is a question from Yesu Anthony who says, to become HR, what should I learn about after my UG in engineering? Okay, so Yesu, I would say if you are interested in doing an MBA, then probably you can take a course in MBA in HR. And I'll tell you my personal story. So I finished my graduation long back. It was in 2000. And when I decided that people area is where I am interested in, and the feedback that I received from many people is you will be a good fit into any function which is related to people. I started doing my master's 2 years back. So right now I'm in my second year of my master's in cognitive psychology with specialization in organization development. So while you finish your engineering, probably you might want to take up a job in IT or related field, and then pick up a master's course in HR or MA in psychology with organization development, and it will help you to understand, and probably then you can decide whether that is something that you want to do, and then you can apply for internally within the organization or externally wherever there are HR openings. Okay, I'm just scrolling through. Okay, there are so many questions, and I'm extremely sorry I might not be able to reflect on all, even if I'm skipping some relevant ones because I'm trying to avoid the repetitive ones. All right, there is a question from Sachin who says, is English language mandatory for interviews in Indian companies? Okay, so when you say Indian companies, now I'm not sure what exactly you mean, but if let's say, for instance, Reliance is an Indian company, but if it is into IT, because Reliance also has an IT arm, so there definitely English is required. Because if it is a very small firm with, let's say, 10 or 12 people, and they are comfortable doing the interactions in any regional language, absolutely fine. But the moment a customer comes into picture, even if the customer base is Indian, obviously they work on computers these days, and everything, the softwares they use are all in English. So definitely English is very important, even if you want to work for an Indian company. For instance, Infosys, Wipro, TCS, these are all Indian companies, but English is the bare minimum requirement. Okay, so there is a question from Maruta Shankar, very interesting question. Hard skills are provable. How can I prove my soft skills? Okay, very, very nice question, and a difficult one as well to kind of reflect. So what I say is, let's say your time management. It's a soft skill, right? And I think there was a session a couple of days back on time management. So how do you prove that is by sharing some examples. So when you are, so it need not be a direct answer. So let me tell you that most often the question will not come directly to you saying that, okay, please prove your soft skills, right? They might ask a question, and there you have to slowly put in some instance wherein you are passing on a message to the interviewer that I am good at time management. Okay. So, for instance, let me take an example. If the interviewer says, okay, tell me a very challenging situation, and what was the challenge and how did you tackle it? Okay. So it's a hypothetical situation. I'm just saying, please don't use the same one. As I said, you got to be true in interviews. You can say that, okay, you had a college fest there and you were in a planning committee, and at the same time, you had to submit your project report. And it is a challenge, right? You have to be there, you have to be here as well. So if you say how you allocated the time, you got up early in the morning, you finished your project work, and you were available most of the time for the college committee, and that happened very well, and you were able to submit it on time. So that way, you are telling the interviewer that, okay, I manage my time pretty well. So that is how you prove your soft skills, and you might not get a direct question to prove. All right. There are a lot of questions on technical stuff like cybersecurity and all that stuff. And as I said, I don't want to give you wrong information because I am not an expert in cybersecurity, so I'll skip that. Okay, so there is a interesting question on from Prithvi. When we share the failure situation to the interviewer, what will be the feeling for the interviewer? Okay, very good question. So what happens is the interviewer who's sitting there, probably at one point in time, he or she was just like you, a fresher. Maybe did not get hired from a college, came through a walk-in, but was a fresher. So they will understand. They will not give you a negative marking saying that, okay, this person has failed at certain area and probably in future also this person will fail. Because we all know that yes, you will make mistakes, you will fail initially. But what we are trying to look for is whether you will learn from those failures or not. Okay. All right. So we are pretty much at the end of the session. Uh, I see there are a lot of questions, and I'm sorry, but the time doesn't permit us to go through all the questions. And I have the email IDs here. I Because this is an Excel form, maybe I'll try and pick up something. I can't promise you, but I'll try and see if there is something that I can reflect on, and you will get to know uh, some of the answers for those questions. So considering the time, so I think I'll stop here. And once again, I would like to thank all of you for taking out time and patiently listening. I know this mode was completely new to me because I'm used to face-to-face interactions or two-way communication, but this has been one way. So very patiently, you guys have listened to the lecture, and I just hope that you learned a thing or two. And I wish you all the luck for the current situation or the future situation. And I just hope that whatever your dreams are, that you fulfill with the corporate companies. All the best, guys. Take care.